Dad, she dropped her wallet. Nathan's small voice tugged at Travis O'Connell's arm just as he reached for the cream to stir into his lukewarm coffee. Travis turned. The woman at the front of the line was standing stiff, her perfectly cut blazer screaming money, but her face said panic. She was patting every pocket, her cheeks flushing deeper with every second. "I'm sorry," she was saying to the barista. "I must have left my hay." Travis stepped forward, pulling his card from his back pocket without hesitation. "Add her drink to mine." The woman's head snapped toward him, her dark lashes lifting to reveal wide, startled eyes. "You don't have to, it's just coffee." He gave her a small shrug as the card reader beeped. "We've all had one of those mornings." She blinked, clearly not used to being the one caught off guard. "Thank you, I'll pay you back." He shook his head. "Not necessary." But she was already digging through her phone, then pausing, frowning. "There's no signal," she muttered. "Figures." Travis offered her the other half of his muffin. "Want this? My kid won't touch it unless it's shaped like a dinosaur." She actually laughed. "I haven't had a muffin in weeks." "I'm Travis," he said, balancing his drink and muffin in one hand while Nathan tugged on the other. "And this is my boss." Nathan grinned up at her, chocolate already on his cheek. "I'm Nathan, I'm 5, he's 35. He has back problems." The woman laughed again, softer this time. "Nice to meet you both, I'm Lila." She didn't offer a last name. Travis didn't press. They sat together on the bench outside the coffee shop, Travis kneeling to help Nathan with his juice box straw. Lila's eyes kept drifting toward him, a flicker of something behind them, curiosity maybe, or distraction. She checked her phone again, biting her lip. Still nothing. "Bad day?" Travis asked, brushing muffin crumbs off his jeans. She hesitated, then let out a breath. "I was supposed to be in a meeting 10 minutes ago, a very expensive one. Sounds intense, you have no idea." She looked at him again, this time really looking. "What about you? You always rescue women in coffee lines," he grinned. "Only on Tuesdays." Nathan leaned into Lila's side like he'd known her forever. "He doesn't go on dates, he says they're too expensive." Travis groaned. "You're really selling me out, buddy." Lila smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, I guess I owe you more than coffee. You don't owe me anything." She looked like she was about to argue, but her phone finally buzzed to life. Whatever she saw made her expression shift sharp focus, a flicker of irritation, then resignation. I should go," she said, standing quickly. "But truly thank you." "Anytime." She hesitated, then turned back. "Hey, Travis." "Yeah, do you come here often?" He laughed. "What is this, a bad pickup line?" "Maybe, but seriously." "Every Tuesday, same time." Lila nodded once, lips twitching like she was fighting a smile. "Good to know." And she was gone, heels clicking across the pavement, disappearing into a sleek black car that pulled up before Travis could even wave goodbye. Nathan tugged on his sleeve. "She was really pretty. You should marry her." Travis chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "I don't even know her last name, Bud." But as he looked down the street, a strange feeling settled in his chest, like maybe he'd just met someone who would change everything. Lila Hartman slammed into the backseat of her town car, her assistant already on speaker. "Where have you been?" Taylor's voice screeched. "The Hong Kong investors are ready to pull out." "I lost my wallet," Lila muttered, pulling off her blazer and tossing it beside her. "And then my phone died, and then someone bought me coffee." "You let someone pay for you," Lila ignored the tone. "Yeah, he had a kid. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. He offered me half a muffin." There was a pause. "That's kind of sweet, kind of." Lila stared out the window. "And he didn't know who I was." "Wait. You didn't tell him you're CEO of Hartman Global?" "Nope." "Lila, you have a Forbes cover coming out next week." "I know." Silence again. Then Taylor said cautiously, "You okay?" Lila leaned her head back against the seat. "I think I might be." Travis didn't see her the next Tuesday. Or the one after that. By the third, he'd stopped pretending he wasn't looking for her. Nathan noticed. Did the coffee girl disappear? She probably just got busy. "Maybe she's a spy," Travis chuckled. "Maybe." That night, he got home late from his shift at the auto shop, his arms aching and his mood worse. Nathan was asleep on the couch, his babysitter already gone. Travis carried his son to bed, then sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills. He was behind. Again. He'd taken extra shifts. He'd sold his old guitar, he'd even skipped meals. but it still wasn't enough, and for some reason he kept thinking about Lila. How calm she'd looked, even when her card failed. How she'd smiled at Nathan. How she made him feel like he wasn't just some tired single dad working himself into the ground. The next Tuesday, he didn't go to the coffee shop. But Wednesday morning, he was back mostly out of habit, maybe a little out of hope, and there she was, sitting at their bench, waiting. She stood when she saw him, relief flashing across her face. "I was afraid you stopped coming." "I could say the same." Lila held up 2 coffees. "I bought your drink this time and a dinosaur-shaped muffin." Travis smiled, stunned. "You remembered." "I remember a lot of things," she said softly. Then she handed him the muffin and added, "Like how you didn't ask for anything, even when I had nothing to give." He looked at her, really looked. Her blouse was silk. Her shoes probably cost more than his rent. And yet she was here, with him. "Who are you, Lila?" She hesitated, then said, "Someone who's really glad you paid for her coffee." Nathan came bounding up seconds later, spotting the muffin. "You came back," he yelled. Lila knelt down, holding it out to him. "With muffins." And just like that, she was back in their world. None of them knew it yet. But everything was about to change. The rain came down in sharp, slanted lines as Travis held his jacket over Nathan's head, rushing across the parking lot. The diner was packed, humming with conversation and the clatter of silverware. A waitress waved them toward a booth in the back, the only one left. Travis glanced at the time. He still had 20 minutes before his next shift started at the garage, just enough for Nathan to eat and for him to chug a cup of coffee. He pulled the menu closer, noticing the prices had crept up again. Nathan didn't notice. He was busy drawing dinosaurs in the condensation on the window. A shadow moved beside their table. "I didn't know you liked this place," Lila said, setting her umbrella carefully by the booth. Travis blinked. "You following us?" She raised her eyebrows. "You think I'd wear these heels to chase you down in the rain?" He looked at her shoes, deep burgundy, polished like glass. "Fair point. I had a meeting nearby, figured I'd stop in." She glanced at the empty seat, then back at him. "May I?" Nathan beat him to it. "Sit here. I'll show you my T-Rex." Lila slid into the booth, brushing a raindrop from her sleeve. "That's the one with the tiny arms, right?" Nathan nodded solemnly. "But he's still the boss. I like that." She turned to Travis. "So what are you having?" He lifted the menu without meeting her eyes. "Just coffee." She didn't comment, just signaled for the waitress. "Can we get 2 grilled cheese specials, one with no pickles, and a chocolate milk?" Travis lowered the menu. "You didn't have to do that. You didn't ask when you paid for mine. That was different." "Why?" He didn't answer. Not because he didn't have one, but because he didn't want to say it out loud. Lila sat back, watching him. "You always this stubborn. Only when someone tries to feed me." The waitress returned with the drinks, and Nathan immediately stuck his straw into the milk, humming under his breath. Lila leaned her elbow on the table, her attention shifting. "Where do you work?" she asked, casual but not careless. He hesitated. "O'Grady's Auto. It's not glamorous." "Does it have to be?" He gave her a look. "You don't exactly scream blue-collar appreciation." "That's because you met me in a blazer, not in college when I worked 3 jobs and ate cereal for dinner." His interest sharpened. "You went to school here." "Graduated top of my class from Winslow." "Majored in business, minored in caffeine addiction." Travis couldn't help it, his mouth curved. "That explains a few things." Lila took a sip of her tea, watching the steam rise. "And you?" "Trade school. Right after high school, I worked while everyone else partied." She tilted her head. "That's not a complaint, is it?" "I don't really have time to complain." Nathan tugged at Travis's sleeve. "Dad, can she come to my school play?" Travis blinked. "That's not really what play?" Lila asked, leaning in. "I'm a tree," Nathan said proudly. "I don't talk, but I get to sway." "I would be honored," she said, and Travis froze. He opened his mouth, but Lila cut him off gently. "Relax. I won't show up in a limo and make a scene. I'll even clap quietly." The grilled cheese arrived, piping hot. Nathan dug in, barely waiting for it to cool. Lila picked up a triangle but didn't bite. "You're wondering what I do," she said. Travis met her eyes. "I figured you'd tell me if you wanted to." Her fingers tapped the edge of the plate. "I run a company, that's all." He didn't press. But something about the way she said it made him think that wasn't all. Not by a long shot. When the check came, she grabbed it without asking. Travis tried to reach for it, but she held it just out of his grasp. "You'll hurt your back," she said, not unkindly. "You don't need to, I want to." He leaned against the booth, defeated. "You're impossible, so I've been told." Outside, the rain had slowed to a dull mist. Lila walked them to the car, holding her umbrella over Nathan. "You sure you don't want to ride?" she asked. Travis shook his head. "Garage's only a block away." Nathan waved as Lila stepped into the backseat of a sleek charcoal car that had been idling at the curb. She rolled down the window as they started to drive off. "Don't forget," she called. "I expect a full performance from that tree." Then she was gone again, tires whispering against the wet pavement. Travis stood still for a moment, one hand on Nathan's shoulder. "She's kind of weird," Nathan said, squinting up at him. "Yeah," Travis said quietly. "But maybe the good kind." He watched the car disappear around the corner, wondering what kind of CEO showed up to a greasy diner in heels just to buy a kid grilled cheese and talk about college, and why, when she left, the world felt a little too quiet without her. The school auditorium smelled like glue sticks and popcorn, and the stage curtain creaked every time it moved. Travis stood in the back, hands jammed in the pockets of his only decent jacket, trying not to look as out of place as he felt among the rows of parents with expensive cameras and embroidered tote bags. He didn't see Lila until the lights started to dim. She slipped in beside him, dressed down in a navy trench coat and simple flats, her hair tied back in a loose braid. No fanfare, no entourage, just her. "You made it," he whispered. "I said I would." She leaned closer. "Besides, there's a tree I'm dying to see sway." The lights dimmed fully, and the curtain rose on a chaotic scene of handmade cardboard props and tiny voices projecting lines with varying degrees of confidence. When Nathan shuffled onstage wearing a crumpled brown tunic and a crown of green pipe cleaners, Lila nudged Travis and whispered, "That's the best tree I've ever seen." Travis didn't respond. He couldn't. Not with the way his throat tightened as he watched his son beam, swaying with exaggerated flair as the other kids sang around him. After the show, they made their way through the crowd of proud parents and camera flashes until Nathan spotted them. "I didn't forget my line this time," he shouted, running into Travis's arms. "You didn't have a line," Travis said, lifting him up anyway. "I remembered not to talk." Nathan turned to Lila. "Did you see me?" "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," she said, tapping his nose. "You stole the show," Nathan beamed. "Can we get ice cream?" Travis hesitated. "It's late." "Ice cream doesn't know what time it is," Lila said. "Come on." "My treat." They ended up at a quiet place tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore, the kind of shop with sticky floors and handwritten signs. Nathan chose bubblegum with sprinkles and immediately got it on his sleeve. Travis ordered black cherry, and Lila, after a long pause, picked pistachio. "You're the first person I've ever seen willingly choose that," Travis said, watching her take a bite. She shrugged. "I don't like sweet things." "That explains a lot." They sat outside under a flickering neon sign while Nathan spun stories about how his tree character was secretly the king of the forest. Lila listened closely, asking questions like it mattered, and Travis saw something shift in her expression, something soft and unguarded. When Nathan finally dozed off in the backseat of Travis's car, Lila lingered by the passenger door, hesitating for the first time all night. "I'm flying to London in the morning," she said. "Board meeting," Travis nodded. "How long? A week, maybe more." "You don't have to explain." "I know," she glanced at the ground, "but I want to." He leaned against the car, arms folded. "You go to London often, too often." "My CFO thinks I hate sleeping." He watched her carefully. "And do you?" "I hate wasting time." She looked up at him then, really looked, and for a moment the streetlight above them hummed louder than anything else. Her eyes were steady, but there was something under the surface, like she was waiting for him to ask her to stay, but he didn't, because he knew better than to ask for things that didn't belong to him. "Have a good trip," he said finally. She nodded once, then reached out and touched his hand, just a brush of her fingers, nothing more. But it lingered long after she turned and walked to the black car waiting at the curb. Travis stayed there even after the taillights disappeared, the scent of pistachio and rain still hanging in the air. The next few days passed in a blur of engine grease and missed calls. He didn't hear from her. He didn't expect to. But he checked his phone more than usual, and when Nathan asked if his tree costume could live in the closet forever, Travis said yes without hesitation. On the fifth night, after closing up the garage, he walked to the coffee shop out of habit. It was nearly empty, the chairs stacked on half the tables. He ordered his usual and sat at the bench outside, letting the cold settle into his collar. The seat beside him stayed empty, until it didn't. A shadow fell across the table, and he looked up to find a man in a suit standing there, holding an envelope. "You're Travis O'Connell?" Travis stood slowly, his entire body tensing. "Yeah, who's asking?" "I work for Miss Hartman." Travis's brows lifted. "Lila, she asked me to give you this." The man handed him the envelope and left without another word. Travis stared at it for a long time before tearing it open. Inside was a single sheet of heavy paper folded in thirds. There was no letterhead, no signature. There was only a handwritten note. "Don't think I forgot. Tuesday, same bench." And below that, a plane ticket round trip, first class, departing in 24 hours to London. The last thing Travis expected when the plane touched down at Heathrow was a chauffeur holding a placard with his name spelled perfectly. The man gave him a polite nod and opened the door to a sleek black car that glided through London like it belonged to another world. Travis barely spoke on the drive. The city blurred past glass towers and rained slick cobblestone, sharp angles and soft light. His hands stayed clenched on his knees, his mind racing with questions he hadn't let himself ask until now. She hadn't told him why she wanted him there. She hadn't promised anything, but he came anyway. The car stopped in front of a townhouse that looked like it belonged in a movie. White stone, wrought iron balcony, ivy climbing up one side. The driver gestured for him to go inside. He hesitated only a second before pushing open the door. Lila stood in the foyer barefoot, her hair tied up and a glass of something amber in her hand. She wore a long sweater and soft pants, nothing like the tailored armor he'd first seen her in. Her face lit up, not with surprise, but with something quieter. Relief. "You came," she said, as if she wasn't sure he would. "I wasn't sure I should." She walked toward him slowly, stopping just short of touching. "Then why did you?" "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you," he said. "Even when I knew I shouldn't." Her eyes closed for a second. "I needed to see you here, in my world, not because I want to impress you. I think you already know I don't need to try. I figured that out when your assistant showed up with a plane ticket." She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I needed you to see this part of me, everything." "No walls, so show me," he said. "Stop hiding." She took a breath, set down the glass, and led him out onto the balcony. The city stretched beneath them, glowing and alive. "I inherited the company when I was 24, she said, resting her elbows on the railing. "My father died suddenly. Everyone thought I'd crash it, sell it to the highest bidder, but I didn't. I grew it, tripled it." Travis stepped beside her, not speaking. "I've been fighting to be taken seriously ever since," she continued. "Every room I walk into, someone's waiting for me to fail. So I stopped letting anyone close. It was easier that way. And then you dropped your wallet in a coffee shop." She exhaled a quiet laugh, the first real one since he'd arrived. "And some guy offered me half a muffin." He watched her for a long moment. "Why me?" "Because you didn't ask for anything. Because you looked at me like I was a person, not a headline or a paycheck. Because Nathan made me laugh when I hadn't in weeks." She turned to face him. "And because I'm not afraid when I'm with you." He didn't answer. He just reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. The next day, she brought him to the Hartman Global offices. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. Glass corridors, echoing halls, people stepping aside when she passed. But she didn't wear her usual armor, no blazer, no stilettos. Just steady confidence and a hand that stayed anchored in his. They stood behind tinted glass as she observed a meeting from above. "You don't need to be here," she said. He studied the room below, the way they deferred to her even when she wasn't in the room. "I think you needed to see that I don't care about any of this." She looked up at him. "You really don't, do you?" "I care about you," he said softly. "Not the bank account, not the headlines. Just you." Later that night, they sat by the fireplace in her townhouse, the city glowing beyond the windows. She curled up beside him, her head resting on his chest. "Stay," she said quietly. He hesitated. "Nathan's at home." "I've got responsibilities." "I arranged for 2 seats on the return flight," she said. "Your neighbor's watching him. She's been texting me updates." He sat up slightly. "You've been talking to Mrs. Henders? She made me promise I'd bring you back in one piece and not let you eat any more vending machine dinners." He stared at her. "You planned this." "I hoped for it," she admitted. "I didn't know if you'd say yes, so I made sure that if you did, we'd be ready." His voice was quiet. "What exactly are we ready for?" She stood, walked to the small drawer near her desk and pulled out a velvet box. It wasn't a ring, it wasn't jewelry, it was a key. "To the townhouse," she said, holding it out, "and to everything that comes with it." Travis looked at it, then at her. "You sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," she said. "I don't want you to just visit my life, I want you in it, all the way." He stood, walked to her, and took the key. Then he kissed her slowly, deeply, like he meant it. Because he did. 2 weeks later, they were back in the States. She moved into a quiet house closer to his neighborhood, one with a backyard and room for Nathan to build his dinosaur kingdom. She didn't bring her company with her. She ran it from a distance, delegating more than she ever had. Travis kept working at the garage, part-time now. He didn't need to, but he wanted to. She never asked him to stop. Nathan's tree costume stayed in the closet. Lila framed a photo of him on stage and put it on the mantel. One evening, as the late summer sun dipped behind the trees, Travis stood in the kitchen, watching Lila laugh as Nathan showed her how to do a cartwheel. She was barefoot in the grass, her hair loose, her phone nowhere in sight. He stepped outside, walked toward her, and took her hand. "You look like you belong here," he said. She smiled up at him. "I do. I just didn't know it until now." And when he kissed her, right there in the fading light, he knew without questions, without doubts, that he'd fallen for the woman who once needed his help buying coffee. Only now, she was the one who'd given him everything. Travis stood at the kitchen sink, sleeves rolled up, rinsing paintbrushes under a slow stream of warm water. Outside, the backyard was scattered with half-finished wooden cutouts, dinosaurs, stars, and one very ambitious rocket, each painted by Nathan with a level of focus usually reserved for cartoons. Lila sat on the porch steps, talking quietly to their new neighbor, an older woman who had just dropped off a basket of oranges from her tree. He watched her laugh at something the woman said, her hand brushing her forehead in a way that had become so familiar, it made his chest tighten. Not because it was new, but because it wasn't. She belonged here now. In this house, in this life, in this quiet pocket of the world that had never expected someone like her to stay. Once the brushes were clean and laid out on the towel to dry, he leaned against the doorframe and called, "You're going to owe me hazard pay if Nathan decides to paint the porch next." Lila turned her head, her eyes glinting in the sunlight. "He told me it's not paint. It's meteor dust." He stepped outside, wiping his hands. "Of course it is. I told him if he finds any real meteors, I'll put them in the next investor report. Think anyone will notice? They don't read them. They just look for the bottom line." She stood, brushing off her jeans, and walked toward him. "You know, I've been thinking, that sounds dangerous. I'm serious." She looked up at him. "Have you thought about what it would be like if we built something together? Like a meteor-themed treehouse. I mean for real, something that's ours, not just this house, not just your garage or my company." He crossed his arms and studied her. "You already gave up a lot to be here." "I didn't give anything up. I chose differently. Doesn't mean I stopped dreaming." He tilted his head. "What are you proposing, exactly?" "I know a man who once rebuilt a whole engine from scrap in 2 weeks because his kid wanted to visit his grandparents and the car was shot." She reached for his hand. "I figure that kind of dedication would come in handy running a business. You're asking me to go into business with you. I'm asking you to build something with me, something small, local, not glamorous. Something that starts with real people." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "What kind of business?" "A community auto repair co-op, free classes on weekends, low-cost work for people who can't afford dealership prices. We already have connections. People trust you. We'd make it work. You want to give away your money. I want to invest it in something that matters." He looked down at their joined hands. "You're not trying to rescue me." "No," she said gently. "I'm trying to build a life with you." He pulled her in, arms winding around her waist, and kissed her with a certainty that left nothing behind. When they parted, he said, "Then let's build it." The following month, the old auto shop on Mill Street reopened as O'Connell and Hartman Auto Collective, with a fresh coat of paint, a waiting room stocked with children's books, and a schedule of weekend classes that filled up faster than they could print flyers. Lila handled the logistics, but she never missed a Saturday. She showed up in ripped jeans and a ponytail, handing out donuts and taking notes on what parts needed restocking. She never mentioned boardrooms or quarterly projections. She never needed to. Nathan had his own corner of the waiting room, complete with a Dino-themed tool bench and a sign that read "Junior Mechanic in Training." Every kid who came through got a sticker and a high five from him. More than once, parents left with more than just a working car. They left with the feeling that someone had truly seen them. One evening, Travis found Lila in the garage, sitting on a stool while Nathan explained the difference between socket wrenches and monkey wrenches with great authority. She looked up as Travis approached, her smile slow and content. "I was thinking," he said, "about something you said before, about building something real." She set down the wrench. "Yeah," he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, not flashy, not dramatic. "Just steady and certain. I want to build everything with you, not just businesses, a future, a family, all of it." She didn't say anything for a moment, then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." Nathan clapped so hard he knocked over a box of bolts. 6 weeks later, they stood in the backyard under a canopy of string lights, surrounded by neighbors and friends. There was no aisle, no tuxedo, no white dress. Just Lila in a soft blue sundress and Travis in rolled sleeves, both barefoot in the grass. Nathan stood between them, holding their rings in a wooden box he'd painted himself. "I never planned for this," Lila said, her voice steady. "I planned for stock options and quarterly growth and boardroom takeovers. But then I met a man who offered me half a muffin and reminded me that the best things in life are never in the plan." Travis took her hands. "I didn't think I had room in my life for anything more." "But you didn't just fit, you changed everything. You made room where there wasn't any." They kissed to the sound of clapping and laughter, fireflies blinking in the trees. Later, after the guests had gone and Nathan had fallen asleep curled up in a pile of cushions, Lila and Travis lay on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket. "I have everything I want," she whispered. He brushed her hair back, his voice low. "So do I." They rocked gently under the stars, the soft creak of the swing the only sound between them, and in that quiet, under the weight of a love they'd never seen coming, they stayed. Together. Always.